I just received some really interesting questions from John inside of the community in regards to the content automation OS system that we have. If you haven't seen this before, basically we built a system that can take all types of different pieces of content like YouTube, podcasts, newsletters, blog posts, and not only help create all of those things, but also then repurpose the transcripts from each of those or the blog posts into hundreds of social media posts, into emails, into basically anything else that you wanted to create. And we do this using AI automations and using existing tools like Airtable, where you have just the one dashboard. Because 12 months ago, when I was looking to sell my pet care business, we had like 30 different tools that we were using in order to produce all of this content each month. And it was super unproductive. Even though every tool promised the world and told us we were going to be productive, we had to use 30 tools in the one workflow in order to produce the content as we wanted. I wanted to build systems where we could do all of this basically inside of the one platform like Airtable, and then we might occasionally have to use like a different tool like Canva to make some edits or something like that. So that's basically what we've done. And John has some really great questions that I want to go over here in this video so that you can see the thought process behind how we would make changes to these platforms, how we would use this platform, and some of the other interesting things here. So basically he sent me a message and he said that he's used it a bunch. It took a little time to figure out and how it worked. He likes it a lot. It's very elegant and complete. The layout is pretty much a masterpiece. Well done. I appreciate that. We've spent a lot of time on this and we've got even better updates coming very soon. So I really want to make sure we take some time to answer these questions really well so that people can use and maximize the features that we have within inside the automation. But everything that I always say with this template is that it's a template to get you started. You should 100% customize it to how you want it. That's exactly why we built it, is because I'm tired of having these software tools that you can't customize to your own workflow. I want to be able to do the things that in the way that I want to do it, which means making a few customizations here and there. So number one, he says he wants it to use Perplexity or Gina or anything to get real-time data, factual data. At the moment, it's producing great copy, but it requires to add the details himself. So let's just assume that he's talking about with blog posts. So let's come into the blog post flow here. And step number one would be to add in your brand for whatever brand you're actually creating this for, and then using one of the top tier AI models like GPT-4o or better, or Claude 3.7 to write the blog post. So we already have an example of a blog post in here. So let's just assume that we're happy with this blog post. We've gone in, we've done the editing. We're super happy with how that's turned out. We can now iterate on top of that. And one of the prompts that we already have inside of our prompt library is a prompt that finds any claims, stats, facts in the post itself that we have and looks them up to check that they're actually real. But in order to do that, we need to use a model that is capable to look up and search the internet. So in his case, he was saying that he wants to use Perplexity. So in order to do that, rather than going into a make.com automation and changing the model in there, for example, we have an AI models table within this template where we can simply add it by clicking this button here and then adding the information required in this form here. And then the model is fully integrated into the system. It's that easy. And this is what I talk about when I'm building these types of templates is we want to build templates inside of a base tool like Airtable so that when it comes time to update to a newer LLM, a newer AI image model, it's simply just through a form. We don't have to go into make.com all the time and change it from inside of there. And we can do that using tools like openrouter.ai. So here's an example of Gemini. So we have Gemini here by Google. Potentially Gemini will be able to search the internet a little bit better. It actually doesn't say it there. He wants to use Perplexity anyway. So let's just go in and find the Perplexity model. So we don't want the R1 model, we want the Sonar model. So let's just check and see if it does. Now featuring citations. So that's probably what he's looking for, right? So we just need to copy this code here and we come into the new AI model form. We add this code there. OpenRouter is our developer account. We add the OpenRouter code here. Our max tokens is the max output tokens, which is 127,000. And the temperature, especially when we're looking up facts, is we want the temperature to be really low. We don't want it to be hallucinating or being creative or anything like that. So now we've just integrated a brand new model into our own AI automation system. So now we can come back into that blog post again, and we can come down to step number 2, and we have our find claims in posts. And if we open this up, we now have Perplexity Sonar as an option to use inside of this workflow. So let's just trigger this and see what happens. So we can see now it's gone to AI writing for the status. And ideally what should happen is the output will get dropped into this table here in just a moment. We'll be able to look at some of the citations that it has for the actual blog post itself. And it is now run successfully. So if we open up this, we can see now that it's got a claim and a question. So researched answers, and it actually is not providing us with the sources, unfortunately, due to the API usage. So let's just try another Perplexity model. Sonar reasoning. Let's see if this one, I mean, it's based on DeepSeek, built-in web search. Let's see if we can just add this one in as well. And it actually does provide citations, but what I've realized now is that it's actually providing it in a different location. So here's our content of what it provides. So it provides all of these things here. It answers everything, but it then provides the citations in a different step. So we have our citations here for all of the different places that it's pulled that information from. So what we actually need to do in this case is add that into the output section. So like right here, it is gathering all of the information. So I'd probably just do new line and then add in the citations section into this here. And then hopefully that'll push that into the, not sure what's happened here with the force stop, but let's just try and save this. And let's trigger that again one more time and watch it work through the scenario and see if it now pulls those citations into the dashboard as well. So again, it's just not append the outputs exactly as it should. So a lot of the top tier models like your ChatGPT and Claude, they follow the prompts pretty perfectly. But when you start using other models like Perplexity, like Llama, like R1, they don't seem to follow the prompts as well inside of these AI automations. So it does sometimes mean you need to go into the modules itself and begin to change the prompts a little bit in order to get the right output. So again, it continues. So the problem that we have right now is that it continues to miss the select field. So it continues to structure the filters in the wrong way. So that's the problem that we're having right now for this to get pushed back into the dashboard in the right way when using this model. Okay, so after a few trial and error of this, it's actually not working at all. So what I'm going to do, and just to make this easy, because it's definitely the model that is the issue, but we need to use this model. So in this case, I would just remove the formatting that is required to filter the output. And we'll just make sure that we remove those from this section here as well. And then we'll just click save. So now we're not going to filter the output. It's just going to go into our table and then we'll just give it a run. So we'll trigger that. But now what we need to do is this will actually be filtered inside the interface. So we need to remove the filters on this table here as well. So if we come into here, we should then go to specific records, and then it's saying that it's only going to show the blog posts and content marketing ones here. But we're just going to remove that. And then we're going to hit publish. And then hopefully now the final version is going to come into this table here as well. You can see now that this one has run successfully. So we have this. So let's open up this. So it's actually giving you all of the reasoning that it goes through. Okay, so I mean, that gave us an answer, but it's not what we're looking for. So the next thing I would do is I would come into the prompt library. And we want to be searching now for that prompt, which is a blog post prompt. And it is a step 2 prompt about finding claims. So here we're saying that they're an expert researcher. We give it some examples. Each of the 5 questions should be clear and concise. So I would now say your output must be as follows. The fact, stat, study here researched, and the sentence it was provided in, the proven fact, the details of the research of the researched fact in one sentence, and then the source and URL of that researched fact. So let's see if we can just provide an output there. So let's an output, a good output variation would be, and let's just run this manually first so we can get it. So I actually don't have a Perplexity account. I'm just going to use a ChatGPT. We should be able to do something similar here, which is, here's a blog post. Let's go, your task is to, and let's grab that prompt And then let's hit go and see if it gives us some outputs that look like this. If it does, yeah, so exactly like this. So we can give it now an example of what a good example of this would be. So we just copy that, and then we go to our good example, and we paste that in here. Oops, didn't actually work. So let's copy that, paste that in here. And now let's see if we run it again, if it actually gives us a better output based on the input plus the output variation. So now if we look at that output, it actually goes through like the full reasoning of everything that it's done. And it does eventually get to the answer here. But again, it's probably either not the right model, or it just needs to, it's one of those models that's going to pour everything into the output, which could be good, could be bad. You can see how it's thinking, what it's going through and so forth. But at least we're getting the final answers here now and the citations in this section here. And if we come in and let's just check if it added in the citation up here. So it's got our think, it's got frequently asked questions. So here we're asking it to add in that after a new line. I don't think it actually did that as a new line. But either way, like it's adding markdown text, which makes it basically impossible for our filters to work. So if you're using it inside of here, it's probably not going to work at all. The better way, and the way that I would actually do this is, let's say you're doing a ton of posts or content that requires a lot of citations. I would actually just build in another step into this workflow. So I would have here, before we start creating our blog post assets, I would say have like a research step where I build a purpose-built workflow, maybe using the make.com Perplexity module, because that's probably going to be fully optimized to work exactly how the system works. So you can make an API call into Perplexity. They've got their chat completion module here as well. Let me just open up the module for Perplexity in here. So we can see it's got our Sonar models like Sonar Pro here. I didn't see that inside of OpenRouter, so potentially that's going to be a better option if we open up some advanced options here. So you can give it some domains. So that does have extra features inside of this module that you can't get inside of OpenRouter. So that's probably the way I would go, which would be like, let's use Perplexity's developer account. Let's use their modules because there's a few extra features in there that we want to create. And we basically just replicate the same workflow. So you'd have a webhook to trigger. So you'd have here, you'd have build another workflow like this. So you'd have your fields where you trigger a new workflow, a new make.com workflow scenario, and it pulls the information from Airtable. It tells Airtable that it's writing, it sets the variables that you need, which is basically just the blog post. I don't think you really need anything else. So you probably don't even need a variables module. It then goes to the Perplexity AI model that runs through with your prompt. It gives you the output. It adds in the citations and so forth, and then it sends it back into Airtable in a field that you've created so that you can fully optimize that workflow just to be for Perplexity research. So that's the way that I would actually do it if I had to do a lot of research for this type of workflow. So let's actually go ahead and do that now. Now, before I dive into this section, I do want to say I'm not sure if I messed up on the day when I was recording this, or if this Sonar Pro model was not available in OpenRouter when I was recording this. It did just drop in around the same day that I was recording it, so I'm not sure exactly what happened. Either way, there is Sonar Pro inside of OpenRouter. So what I'm about to do is add the Perplexity modules into this scenario here. However, you can probably replicate it using the OpenRouter scenarios as well. You just need to look at, okay, here's what's available in all of the settings when it comes to OpenRouter. Do you personally, do you need the extra settings inside of Perplexity when you are creating your workflow? So you may need things like a domain filter. You may need things like search recency filter. These are the questions that you need to answer. If you just need a simple module and it just outputs some citations, then it's highly likely that this next section that I'm about to go through can actually be done using the OpenRouter module as well. So just keep that in mind as we're continuing this video. So what do we need? Firstly, we need our inputs, which is basically just going to be the blog post. Then we need our outputs, which could simply be the outputs of the first prompt when it comes to Perplexity. But then I'm actually going to test and see if it can actually take the entire blog post and then rewrite it at the same time. So I'm going to have two output fields, one for the first module in Perplexity, the first prompt, where it outputs the facts and stats and claims with citations. And then secondly, the next one that I want to see is then if it can rewrite the entire blog post in its entirety and clean it all up, integrate those facts, stats, and claims into the blog post at the same time. So we just need to add a few extra fields. So we come into our data fields now, into our tables, and we want to add in, what's that going to be, 2 new fields for the output, and then of course, another trigger, another button field as well. So we're just going to call this one trigger AI research in Perplexity. Let's make it super specific. And this is going to be a button. I'm just going to put a placeholder in there for the moment. Might not let me save until I just remove this. So let's put a placeholder in there for a second while we bring all of this together. Then we want our AI research output, and we're going to make that long text, enable rich text formatting, create field, and then we want our AI researched full blog post, and then we're going to make that long text, enable rich text formatting as well. Cool. So we might need to add more as we go, but let's just start with that. And next, we're just going to duplicate this content created trigger. So we'll just go clone, and we're going to call this blog post research. And we're going to add a new webhook, and we're going to call this COS 3.0 blog post research. And this is, since we're building this now, then we're actually going to put this into version 4.0. So if you are a member, you'll get a free upgrade to 4.0, but we'll also give you this scenario that I'm about to build as well. So if you are interested in purchasing this, if you're watching this on YouTube, then once you log in, you'll get access to all of these templates. So you don't have to build any of this yourself. You basically plug and play and start to customize it. So rather than spending like 60 hours to build this entire thing from scratch, you could download the template, upload it into your own accounts, and then spend like another 10 hours maximum to customize it exactly how you want it. So you can save yourself literally like 80 hours of build time just by grabbing this template. But first, we're going to need our webhook here. So before we do that though, I'm just going to grab the formula that we will need. So that's AI image, blog posts. We want the content creator trigger. Let's just grab that. So we want to add in this here, and we actually need to then change the webhook. So we're going to copy the address to clipboard, come into here, change our webhook right here. And now that should trigger all the information we need for this table. So we're going to go execute research steps. Going to make this a button, and we're going to click save. Cool. So let's now give it a quick test. So we're just going to go and unlink this one up to here. We're going to go run once. We're going to go test, and we're going to look back in here, and it has worked. So basically the webhook is triggered. It's caught all the information that we need. It's made an API call to Airtable. It's an updated, say the AI is writing. Now, all of this stuff is configured for different parts of the template. So we actually don't really need most of it all the way down to, we probably actually won't need all of this basically. So let's just unlink this one down here. We'll definitely need update Airtable again at the end, but we're just going to delete all of these. So basically what's happened is we've triggered a webhook. It's called Airtable. It's pulled in all of the information that we need from Airtable. And then it's updated a field in here to say that the AI is underway. Next, we then want to go to Perplexity, and we'll do create a chat completion. So we're just going to go create a connection here. I'm going to call this Big Moves Perplexity. And then we need our API key. So create an account with Perplexity. All you need to do is come up into the settings, into API, make sure you've funded your account. So I've just added $5, and then we generate an API key. So obviously I'm not going to show you that part. And also, if you are checking out and going through that process, we have an upsell that you can actually buy where you get access into our deals platform. We have 3 months free on the enterprise plan, so up to $3,000 in savings. And you can add this to your order for a fraction of the cost. It's so low, it's a one-time payment, and you could actually save, $3,000 on Perplexity plus thousands of dollars more on other tools. So just if you are going through that process, or if you're an existing member and you want to upgrade into our deals platform for a one-time payment and save thousands of dollars, then just let me know and I can send you that link. But once you're inside Perplexity, we add that API key into here, and then we click save, and now we're good to go. So here we can choose our models. Now that's probably one other part that I would want to map in. So the best way to do this, because it's not fully integrated into the whole site, would actually just be to create a single select. So we're just going to call this Perplexity models, and we're going to go single select, and then we need to match them, or we could look up the API documentation. So here we have all of the models. I found this just by searching on Google. We're just going to see what we can do here. Cool, so I've added those models in there like this, and we're just going to create that field, and we'll use Sonar by default. And maybe once we have it all tested, we'll start looking at Sonar Pro. But that means we then just need to re-trigger the workflow so that we can bring that into our data. So let's just go run once, and we're going to go trigger. Cool, so we should now be able to map that in as a variable rather than choosing a model. So again, like the reason why you want to do this is because you don't want to go into make every single time you want to use a different model or a new model comes out. You just want to add it into your dashboard so then it maps in automatically. So then we open up our fields, and then down the bottom, hopefully we should be able to find Perplexity models, and then we map that in there. So this one is, I'm not going to worry about max tokens actually, but temperature I'll add in. But here is now where we can add in the content. So this is going to be, I mean, we could have a system prompt here, which is, you're an expert researcher who substantiates facts, stats, and claims in blog posts to ensure accuracy. So we could play around with these prompts a whole lot more, but we'll just add that in as a system prompt. And then let's add in now the user prompts, and basically we want to map in the blog post, and then we want to give it basically the prompt that we were using before. So let's come into our fields, and we're looking for here in the fields, we are looking for our blog post final version. So let's give it some context. So we'll just go, this is our blog post, use it for the prompt below. Then we'll go instruction, and let's grab that prompt, and we'll just start with the prompt from the prompt library, and we'll type that in. So we can just remove that because we've already given it a system prompt, which is provide. So I just want to change this a little bit. It's going to be read the article above and look for any stats, facts, and claims in the article, then find sources to substantiate those claims. For example, if we write about dogs, blah, 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 cool. So let's just hit save, and let's just run this and see what happens. So it's now running through Perplexity. It's using the Sonar model. It's going to provide us something to see what comes out the other side. So if we open up this, it has our choices here, message, content. Here are 5 concise questions based on the article. Okay, so it's given us questions and answers here. It's saying here, no specific source, no specific source. Okay, that's a bit of a worry, but let's just check what's happened in here. So number one is what percentage of Lamborghini models hold or increase in value over time. And then it's giving us this. So yeah, it's not really sourced it properly. So it could be a model issue. Let's try another model. Let's go with Sonar Pro, and let's leave that a run. We definitely got a lot more citations in this one. Okay, so that one looks like it works. So it looks like the model is super important. So we want to be using Sonar Pro. So let's just use that as an example now. And then let's try again with Perplexity, and let's just duplicate this module. So this time they're not actually a researcher, but you're an expert editor, blog post editor, who combines the first draft of the blog post with sourced stats, facts, and claims to write the final version. So context, this is our blog post for the prompt below. This is our research and sources for the facts, stats, and claims made in the blog post. And then we want to add in our content, and then we also want to add in our citations. We'll just add in here citations. Instruction is, your task is to combine the draft blog post with the search and citations to create a final blog post. Do not make the blog post any shorter than it is right now. you can change some sentences in order to integrate the research and sources, but keep it limited, but keep most of the blog post as is. So if this works, then this makes this entire process so much better. So let's just click save, and we're going to hit save, and let's just tie this into Airtable immediately. Okay, so we got there. So the API call for Airtable is a little bit temperamental. You need to transform it to JSON before you send it back into Airtable this way. So now it should work. So let's give this a run once, and let's do it from start to finish. So we can see now it looks like that's run successfully. So let's just open these up and look at what it's come up with. So it's sourced. It's given it exactly how we asked for it, which is the question, the sentence, and then the source. Citations, it's looked like it's not actually adding the citations, and looks like we might have missed the variable here. So let's actually fix that and change that variable in down the bottom here. So that one was correct. We actually forgot to change this. From citations should be the final output. So let's try again one more time now. Okay, so that looks like it's completed properly now. So the one problem we have, which I'm not going to continue with, we'll fix this up and it'll be in version 4.0, which is it only adds the first citation. So we need to iterate through all of the citations it provides and then send that into this field here. So we'll fix that up, and that'll be ready inside of this blueprint when you download it from inside the members area. But now here's the fully revised blog post incorporating the research. So in here, it's got our sources matched here. And then I imagine that will be the same as we go through. So there's number 2 here. So hopefully as we come down to the bottom, then it'll have 1, 2, 3, 4, so on, and it does. So now we have this fully sourced down below. So you could go through and then add those in manually or whatever you wanted to do. It looks like they link it in. So you could probably even play around with the prompts a little bit and get the system to add these next to the where it sources each of the articles. But now that is fully sourced. So the final thing for us to do is add that to the interface. So we can come into our interface now and we go edit pages. And I'm not going to get too worried about all of the naming conventions and stuff, but basically we would just add in underneath the first version. So the first version now becomes a draft. We would then add in an element here, which would be a trigger for the execute research. So we're just going to add that in there. We're going to have the output, and then we're going to have the full blog post. We need the models next to the trigger. And what else do we need? And citations, we'll add the citations over here. So what I would do is I would make this section here wide. Let's just go wide, make this one full width. We can change this color of this top one, make this one editable, and I mean, we can make these editable if we want to. There's no real need for it. This one definitely needs to be editable, but there's the revised version. So now if we hit publish, we have now a second step. So the step now in the workflow is 1, it generates the long blog post. We come in, we do our editing, we get it how we want it. Number 2, we then use Sonar Pro or any of the Perplexity models to execute some research steps. It does this research here. It will eventually provide all the citations here as well. And then it rewrites it again using all of the information that we've just used, plus the blog post, and then references the sources down the bottom here. Now, like I said, you could probably change the prompt to say, add the sources directly into the article and link from the article rather than from the citations at the bottom of the article. So you can play around with those prompts and get them exactly how you want them for your particular blog post. But yes, this is going to happen in version 4.0. We're going to make this look nice. We're going to integrate it fully into the system so that you don't have to worry about setting it up yourself. If you're using any previous versions, then this automation that I just created, this make.com automation, will be inside of your members area. And it'll be in there as soon as you're watching this video, it'll be there for you ready to go. Now, the next question that we have here says that it needs to produce many more images and store them, not just overwrite the previous one. So basically is what he is saying is we have this social media output field that we send all of our outputs into. And then from here, we can actually go through and choose different models like DALL-E, Ideogram, Flux, any of the replicate models basically. And then it creates an image and sends that image back into our content image field, which then we can then post directly to social media from this dashboard. So what he's asking for is, can we have multiple images that come into here so that we can choose from them? So number 1 is we need to actually check what the model can do. based on Flux Pro, there's no input schema here for the amount of images to create. So we can't actually ask it to input 4 images into here, and then we choose from the 4 images. However, there are some models that do allow that. So if you've seen this one here, where I created a video on how you can train AI models with your own face, like this image here, to create thumbnails for YouTube, for example, or anything, for example, then that model there actually does allow us to have up to 4 outputs. So we actually built that one through foul.ai just to trial a different platform. But you can see here, when the outputs come through, we iterate through the images, and then we aggregate those images and then send them back into the same Airtable field. So that's how we pull all of those images and send them back in. But based on the documentation for Flux Pro, for example, doesn't seem like you can actually do that in the same field. Same with ideogram. So I can't actually see it inside of ideogram in the generate one. There is the ability, if you're editing images, to have a number of images field here. In the remix, let's quickly check. Can't really see anything remix either. Upscale, yeah, same thing. So like generation wise, probably not going to happen. So what I would do in that scenario then is, like, this is our automation here, and this bottom route is for the replicate version. So the first module here is where it gets generated. So we have all of the information in here. You've got to wait 20 seconds while it generates, and then we get the image from this section here, upload it to Cloudinary so that we can compress the image, and then send it into Airtable. So what I would actually do in this scenario is I would take these here and I would just duplicate them for the amount of images that you want to create. Basically just copy them there. Let's just unlink this and let's just paste these here. So it would look something like this. You would start to add all of these along. And then what we can learn from this scenario here, which you can also just download this entire thing inside of the community as well. So we have this available to everybody. But you can use the same type of building technique as we've got here, where you aggregate all of the outputs from all of the 3 or 4 different sections of this workflow and aggregate them into a single array. And then that single array can send all the images back into this content image field here. So then just keep in mind though, you can't send all the images into the social media platforms. So you'll just have to delete the ones that you didn't want. But you can definitely do that where we're using the same prompt through the entire workflow, because even if you do use the same prompt, it's going to give you a different image each time anyway. So that would be a different way that you could make that work if the AI model doesn't allow to have multiple image outputs from the one run. Now, the final one that I'm going to answer here is he needs more hooks. So especially for newsletters, but I can add those. I checked out TypeShare. There's plenty there. I suspect I'll just invent my own. So yeah. So newsletters are absolutely, and more hooks for newsletters are absolutely key. And we made this super easy to do. So when you purchase a template, you get access into a few extra tools as well. So I'm just going to open up this one here, and we're going to come down to the bonuses, and we have our creative prompt wizard here. And this creative prompt wizard is for anybody in the community to use. So I'm going to open that up. Basically, I'm going to ask it now to create a fully templatized output. Now, what does that mean? Basically, you can take any type of copy, whether it's a newsletter, social media post, ad, whatever it is, paste it in, and then it will create a template for you, or like a hook template for you, or just the entire template for the entire newsletter. So if we add that in here, I'm not sure why it's freaking out at the moment, but maybe by the time I grab an email that I want to use, and let me just check on my other screen here for some different emails from people that I like. Let's use this one here. So this is a guy in the AI space, Matt Leitz. I don't know too much about him. I know selling bots. I'm not sure if that's actually valuable or not. But basically, we're just going to say, create us a fully templatized output, and then we're just going to paste in the entire email there. So basically what it's doing now is it's turning that entire email into generalized descriptions of what the AI should do when writing an email just like this one. So instead of saying, I like to call it the entrepreneur's vicious cycle, it's saying attention grabbing statement that highlights a common struggle entrepreneurs face. I would even depend, if you're not in the entrepreneur space, I would actually take this a step further and say, make it even more generalized. So let's even do that. Make it more generalized as it's not just for entrepreneurs. So here it is. Engage in opening statement that highlights a common struggle many people faced. So now it's even more generalized, so it can be used across any industry at all. So let's now take this and we'll add that into our dashboard. So we come in, this is the beauty of this prompt library. So we add this into our dashboard, we go add prompt, we add it in here. We actually want to remove all of those spaces. Give your prompt ID. So we'll just go newsletter prompt test. So let's go newsletter and we'll choose our product, content, email marketing. Let's go create. And now we can use that inside of any of these workflows. So now we just come into our newsletter flow and let's just go our 3 mistakes of automation. And we've got some angle, we've got an angle in here. We've got newsletter, some key points we want to cover. And in here, we just want to write in that prompt that we just created. So I'm just, hopefully if I type in test, newsletter test, and we just want the one output, and we're going to use Claude 3.5 Sonnet. That should do it. And now if we go trigger AI prompts, it should follow the exact template that we've provided. So here it is here. So remember when everyone thought AI automation would magically fix their business problems? I get it. I've been there chasing. So you can see how immediately just by doing that, it changes the output of AI so much. Like this is the secret that I don't see anybody doing. I don't know why, because this is how you can take your copy from like a 5 or 6 out of 10 just by you generating AI to like a 10 out of 10. Go out and find all the templates from the biggest guys in your industry, the biggest brands, those with the best copy, those with the best messaging. Strip down their copy, templatize it, and use it in your own, with your own context, your own business, so that your copy performs just as well. This is like the entire secret. So remember, this GPT is free for everybody who purchases something from us. You get that in the bonus section. It'll be there for you to use. Make sure you use it because it's an epic tool that I created for you. So that's all the questions I'm going to cover here today. Thanks for watching. It's a long video. If you watch through to the end, then hopefully you've learned a little bit, because I've not just taught you about how we actually do things, but I've also like shown my thought process of how I figure stuff out as well, which I think is the more valuable part. So I hope you got a lot of value from that. If you did, see you in the next video.